So Keynes pointed out that although aggregate demand does fluctuate, but prices and wages do not always immediately respond as economists often expect, posit, theorize, so on and so forth, right? So instead, we find that these prices and wages are sticky, which makes it difficult to restore the economy to full employment and potential GDP. And the reason why, one of the main reasons why, is the coordination argument. My English is spot on today. Explanation why exist. And it's the coordination argument. So the coordination argument talks about how in order to have downward wage and price flexibility, would require perfect information about what? About the lower compensation acceptable to laborers and other market participants. So, you know, there is a wage that I'm willing to do this job at that is lower than the current wage that I'm doing it at, right? But does Chadron State College know that? No, they don't. And there's a risk that if they lower my wage or deny me a raise or something like that, that I might leave, right? So this coordination argument has to do with the lack of perfect information about how much can I decrease the wages that I pay my workers and still have them show up. And then the other part of it, like, is and still do a good job, right? And still be productive. You know, a friend of mine is this very high, you know, highly productive, highly paid worker in this, you know, concierge medicine field, you know, making very good money. And their boss recently like had this kind of like review with them and said like, I just don't really like know what you're doing here, and I just don't see why it couldn't be half time. And as a result, that person is like freaked out now, thinking and you know, and then they talked and you know, the boss was like, well, you know, I give you like 6 weeks like notice and let you know, right? Which is not a lot of time. And so this person is now, you know, kind of 1 foot, you know, somewhat out the door, right? Because of the fact that, you know, the employer came in and said, you know, I feel like I could pay half the amount and get the same amount of work done for what you're doing. And so it'll be interesting to see if that person sticks around, and if they do stick around, interesting to see if they're going to be as productive as they were before, now that there is this, you know, looming, you know, scythe hanging, you know, the other shoe may drop, right? So what about price changes? So we keep on talking about wage and price flexibility, right? So the wage one makes sense when we talk about the coordination argument, but let's talk about why prices might be sticky too. So the first reasons that price might be sticky is because changing prices is going to use company resources. You have to print new pamphlets, print new signs. I mean, there's a lot of digital technology these days, so it's not so much anymore. But back in the day, changing prices used a lot of company resources. It still does. Even if you have all digital signs, you still have to figure out how much to change those prices, run the elasticity, figure out what that's going to do to your total revenue, what that's going to do to add-on purchases, and so on and so forth, right? There's a cascading effect that increasing the price may have. And then the second one, and we'll leave it for here today, is that frequent price changes may leave customers either confused or angry, and in either case, they're going to go somewhere else, right? And so I had a friend, he used to run a Village Inn, which is like a Denny's kind of diner situation, right? And barely made any money. The place barely made any money. And I was like, I don't understand. You guys are packed. He's like, well, if we increase the price of even anything by like 50 cents or $1, like a lot of these old people on fixed incomes throw a fit, you know, and then they don't want to come here anymore. And like, that's a big part of our, you know, base. And so this is a very real thing depending on your consumer base, right? If you're doing concierge medicine for, you know, people in Silicon Valley, you know, they don't care, right? You know, you can change the price all day long. It's not a big deal. But if you're, you know, grandma and grandpa who only get $650 every month, you know, increasing the price of the Grand Slam from $5 to $750 is going to really piss them off and have them go somewhere else. All right, I will see you all on Friday.